Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, yWhales, wherever in the world you are today. So it is May 4th, so may the 4th be with you. And we're really excited today because we have Jason Desimone with us, and as always, my lovely co-host, Sue Marks. And, it's a really weird time in the world. There's a lot of unrest globally going on in the entire world. There's potential wars happening. Banks literally were crashing yesterday. The Fed raised interest rates, and we had multiple banks literally crash and disappear overnight. And this is when crypto is supposed to shine. This is blockchain's shining moment. Bitcoin should be coming to the rescue any moment now. It's the 2008, 2009 financial crises all over again. And Bitcoin's at 29,000. And that's fine. And I think that still really, showcases the power of the fact that we're still here. We're still kind of moving the right direction. But there's been a lot of the crises that has hurt the cryptocurrency market because the fiat on and off ramps are mostly killed off. So if you have money in, you're good. But if you want to get money in, it's really a challenge right now. And so while this podcast isn't, designed directly around, the global financial markets, it absolutely is adjacent to it, because what we have to have along with a shining global financial industry is you have to have sub industries. You have to be able to utilize Bitcoin. You have to be able to utilize smart contracts and Ethereum and every different network out there to be able to create a thriving ecosystem. And so that's why I'm really excited to have Jason today, because you're an amazing user of blockchain technologies and Web3 infrastructure. Sue, if you wouldn't mind kind of, giving a quick intro for Jason, that'd be fabulous.
Well, I first met Jason because we've got a mutual acquaintance in New York City, and am just really impressed with the Rove World platform. And it is a Web3 entertainment platform that makes it seamless and simple and easy and engaging for artists and fans to connect. So it's, kind of the essential one click that you see on some other platforms. Rove World does that. And I've, got it here on my, on my phone here. So welcome, Jason. And, Jay talks about, is it crypto winter? Web3 is out. AI is in. It's all about digital transformation and all of the new ways we are interacting and engaging our customers. And more importantly, how our customers and fans expect us to engage with them. So every week there's more brands that are jumping into the third version of the internet, Web3, digital experiences. And I just love the way that you are working with some of the biggest brands that there are. So just quickly, in the spirit of Simon Sinek, what's your why? And of course, there's what, how, and why. So why don't you talk a little bit about your personal what, how, why, and Rove World's what, how, why?
Absolutely. Just wanted to start off by thanking Sue and Jay for having me on. So interesting and important what yWhales is building, and honored to be here. Yeah, so I think that was a great preface into this discussion. My biggest what, or why, I should say. I've been in this space for a while, the crypto, blockchain, Web3, whatever you want to call it. I've been in this space since around 2015, 2016. Adamant user of the technology, also a big believer in the ideological and the philosophical tenets behind it, a lot of which Jay hit on. And, as a builder in the space for quite a while, I know the only way to really substantiate this industry and for it to reach its full potential is to onboard new users, right? To grow the entire pie. And I think it's really important what Sue just hit on, where a lot of this tech stack is buzzwords, right? Whether it's Web3, crypto, AI, AR, VR, you name it. The whole goal, right, is we want to create a future where there's seamless interactions between, customers and the organizations they interact with, whether that's financial or various industries. And they shouldn't even realize what the tech is behind it, right? And that's one of the goals behind Rove. The company as a whole is called Rove. Rove World is our mobile app. One of the first crypto apps approved by Apple. It's available in the App Store. And our goal was really to remove all the traditional friction points that you see in Web3 products. So once again, this is a mobile app. You download it in the App Store. You sign in with your email address, and a digital wallet's created for you. Never need to deal with the seed phrase. Never need to deal with a lot of the dangers around wallet hacks and losing your private keys, etc. From there, users actually never need to hold crypto. So this app is utilizing NFT technology. It's making actual calls to the blockchain, but users never need to hold crypto. It's called gasless transactions, right? So we cover the gas. And we thought it was really important, right? Versus what currently exists out there. I know this is a little long-winded, but giving a little bit about the background. Right now, a user would have to go to a centralized exchange, buy Ethereum or Solana or whatever, send it to a third party, connect your MetaMask. There's just too many steps in between, and we wanted to streamline that. Just to go from there, we accept credit card payments and in-app purchases, and we're transferring digital wallets to usernames. So @Sue, @Jay versus an entire wallet address. This was the main thing I was focused on from a product perspective from day one. Once we built this foundation and this infrastructure, now we're able to engage with different brands, different organizations who want a direct way to engage with their audience. And I firmly believe that Web3 is the future and this exponential technology as a whole. And so do a lot of brands, right? Despite it being a crypto winter, the space is growing by every metric, right? Wallets, total users, transactions on chain. The space is only growing. More and more brands are coming in, and we want to be well positioned for the next narrative. That's a little sort of overview. I hope I hit on all of it.
That was
perfect.
fabulous. And there's a couple of things I want to kind of like chalk through right now, right off the bat, which is you have a product, a real product that has real world utility value and is needed by your prospective clients so that they can go out and build their brand and do everything that they're trained to do. But none of these people, or not to say none, a majority of them don't care about Web3. They don't want to have a wallet, MetaMask wallet, and learn all the things. And I can say, having taught 1,000+ people how to use, blockchain wallets, it's not a safer system. It's not an easier system. The benefits of self-custody are gone the second you lose anything. And so what you're doing is, I believe, the right way, whereas you're utilizing the technology without anyone having to realize that you're utilizing the technology. And that does a couple of things. Number one, and I'm saying this for the audience, you already know this, is it allows you to kind of future-proof your platform. Is that you can say, hey, this is siloed right now as you're building, making sure that you're adhering to the ROI that you need for your company and that your clients are getting kind of what they need. But eventually there's ecosystems that will be built off of these communities. And I think that that's one of the coolest things. How was that decision made to kind of abandon the download your Phantom wallet and go through these 25 steps so you can log in?
Yeah, so I think having been in the space for a while, one thing you realize is it's one of the fastest moving industries you'll ever be a part of. You can have an idea that's relevant and forward thinking one day and it's obsolete the next. So if you're a builder in this space, you have to think more than one step ahead, right? You got to think multiple steps ahead. We actually started building Rove in 2021. And everything that we built was for where the space was headed, not where it was in that current time. Back then, the concept of building mobile apps was very foreign. It still is, but we think this will be the main narrative of the next cycle: consumer-friendly products. And we knew that just where the space was not conducive to that growth that I talked about in the previous answer. So I think riffing off what Jay said there, the goal is always to take the benefits of Web3, right, and remove the pain points. So what are some of the benefits of Web3? Well, custodial control over your assets, right? This sort of the internet of ownership, whether that's data or collectibles, what have you. This direct relationship between brand and fan without value being extracted by intermediaries, right? All of these concepts that we love about Web3 and we believe in, let's retain those, but actually make it easy and safe for the user to interact with it. And just the current, what we saw, NFTs were just taking off, but once again, the user flow, if you will, was if I'm a new user who's never used crypto, we'd have to direct them to a centralized exchange. Let's call it Coinbase. They'd have to buy ETH or SOL or AVAX. They'd have to buy gas for whatever chain they're interacting with. Then send that to a MetaMask or a hot wallet on a Chrome browser, which they have to set up with a seed phrase. Now connect that wallet to a third-party site. There's probably a 50% chance you get scammed and lose everything in your wallet. And then, if you don't, and you miraculously mint this thing, then what? What do I do with this asset? Does it just sit there and I hope the value goes up? There were like so many pain points. It was such like a rudimentary and rough space, and we knew that everyone who can crack that everyone says onboarding the next billion users, but whoever can crack that through the product really had a winning recipe. So we went mobile. We built on a very friendly chain for what we're doing, which I could get into. And we wanted to once again keep the benefits of Web3 and remove the friction points.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about the selection of chain, and it's not because there's no maxis. I think that anyone that's a maximalist in this day and age is really kind of missing out on the ecosystem. There's going to be chains upon chains upon chains, yep. and ecosystems that need to flow in. Web3 I always refer to as the modular internet. You should be able to move all these assets around. Like no one, when you visit a website today, no one's like, is this S3 or Azure? I only browse on Azure websites because it's nobody cares. And so, you're on Solana. I'm personally a big fan of Solana. I've been in there for a long time. And I look at it as kind of that next evolution of they took everything that Ethereum and EVM compatible chains were doing, and they're just moving at a much faster pace. Can Ethereum catch up? Can they, do they have a larger ecosystem today? It's arguable depending on which metrics you're looking at. But what was kind of the choice? Because I can tell you, and I'm sure you did as well, you take a lot of flack from the communities based on what chain you're on, but nobody knows what chain you're on because you put it in the background.
Exactly. And I think this is a product of once again, a product of the industry being very early and nascent. So we have these sort of tribalistic views around chains and ecosystems that we kind of need to get rid of for this space to grow as a whole. I think, to what you're alluding to, Jay. So essentially, there's a few key decisions that you want to make when choosing what chain to build your product on. For us at the time, this was before Solana blew up in relevancy. I think it was ranked number 52 in terms of tokens. Mm-hmm. It was yet to have that crazy run where it became in the top 10. But as I was looking at chains and, in the early days, just to take a step back, it was Bitcoin only for the first 6 or so years of the industry. Ethereum created the concept of a smart contract. Ethereum was the main layer one. And then we saw this explosion of alternative layer ones in like 2018 and 2019. And right around then was the birth of Solana. I was always looking at it as a very interesting chain. As Jay said, it's non-EVM compatible. It's built on something called Rust, which is a different tech stack. But what Solana allows for is instantaneous transactions and a very low transaction fee. So the average transaction fee on Ethereum is 0.00025 cents. It was a fraction of a penny for each transaction. To compare to ETH, when ETH is widely used and congested, one transaction could cost up to $100, right? So all of these decisions are very important to us because we're trying to create a product that would interface with the masses. One thing we were building besides mobile is, as I mentioned, gasless transactions. So every time you buy an NFT in Rove, whether it's a ticket or a collectible, we're covering the gas fees as the platform. So users never need to hold crypto. That is unsustainable with a $10 to $100 gas fee, right? It needed to be negligible and scalable. So Solana has the best mobile stack if you want to build a mobile app. They just released Saga and Solana mobile stack recently. We were doing this before, but it's very friendly for building on mobile. That was a key consideration. Instantaneous transaction fees and instantaneous transactions and low transaction fees. And then last but not least, this was when Solana was developing its vibe and its community and its culture. And it was really focused on onboarding the masses and entertainment. I think Audius, the Spotify of crypto, just moved over. And we realized to build sort of an entertainment product that wanted to interface with brands, this would be a strong community for us to do so. So we built on Solana. Just a side note, we are now expanding multi-chain. So we just formed a partnership with Near Protocol. That is the first additional chain we will integrate. And my thoughts on that really quickly is that as a builder, you want to adopt a multi-chain approach as quick as possible because there's enough risk on the application layer, right? There's a lot of risks. Will you get users? Will people like this? Will the tech work? There's enough risk there. You don't want to build risk into the protocol as well. And in this day and age where every week something new is labeled a security or there's a new massive hack, you want to create options with your product. And if something goes wrong with one chain, you want to be able to migrate pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, and this is redundancy. This is not a new concept in the tech world. Like, there's no one that's hosting any type of public website or any infrastructure that just goes on this one server. And a blockchain is essentially, while it's decentralized, it's a single server that we're just going to trust that this one is good. They're gonna you have to load balance. You have to do a lot of things and plan for disasters and disaster recovery. So I think that entirely makes sense, and I love the chain agnostic. And by the way, Near, I love the concepts there, and I think that they're definitely making some good strides. Sue, I apologize. I've been hogging Jason right off the bat, and I know you've got a long list of questions.
It's fascinating. When you, Jason, when you think about the next, say, 9 to 12 months, so through 2023 and beginning 2024, what do you see as the biggest obstacles or threats and the biggest opportunities?
Specifically with Rove or the industry as a whole?
Let's talk about both. Let's take Rove first, and then let's take a step back and talk about the industry.
Great. Yeah. I mean, they're inextricably linked, so we'll hit on both. But I think the space, crypto as a whole, is it's a very cyclical industry. It's marked by euphoric bull runs and then really depressing bear markets. Every cycle is kind of the same. There's new narratives each time, but by and large, you have very sort of predictable trends. We are dead in the middle of a bear market. The Bitcoin halving is a little over a year from now, and that's normally what precipitates the next bull market. So we have a little more, and this is normally the time where it's actually the toughest because we had the crazy drops. Now it's this sideways action, like Bitcoin staying between 30 and 26,000, for months on end. And this is when everyone starts, a lot of people who were here for the wrong reasons, start flocking to other industries such as AI or what have you, only to return during the next pump. So there's a lot of things you need to fight as a builder during these periods. One is just general apathy. Number two is funding dries up a lot. We're definitely experiencing a VC winter in the crypto space. There was money flowing everywhere in 2021 and a little bit in 2022. That's really dried up. So as a builder, you really need to be cognizant of your runway. You see a lot of companies downsizing as a precautionary measure, and then money will flow again in the next bull and you resume. So there's a lot of strategic plays you have to make there. I think what's different about this bear market that's very tough to navigate is the regulatory onslaught, if you will, that's happening globally. This is not just with crypto, right? This is the fiat on-ramp as well that Jay alluded to in the intro. It's making it very difficult to navigate, especially as American or domestic companies, which Rove is. We deal with crypto. We're a tech product. We obviously have our reserves in fiat, but we deal with crypto quite frequently, and not having that on ramp, not knowing. I think the toughest part is not necessarily the regulation, but it's the lack of clarity. So if you're a builder, there's no clear framework to operate in. You can go ahead, Jay.
Oh no, I completely sympathize and understand. We have a number of projects and projects that we do ourselves, and as a CEO, I can just say I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I never once had to worry about is my bank safe?
Yeah.
The fact that I'm writing these long letters to the board hey, I just moved all of our money as a precautionary measure from one of the largest banks in North America, because I'm worried about it. And then you're right. And then, so there's this level of paranoia that we have to live with. Like, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I'm just minting this that has no intrinsic value today. But I see, company X, Y, and Z is now being sued for this. And it's being in the United States right now is really hard. And I can say that, one of our larger projects we're doing, I'm as an American, I really wanted to launch it here, but we're launching it in the EU because they're being just clear about the rules. And that's the point, is that I don't think that you or your team in any way, shape, or form is saying, what we can do, we can get around all these things. You guys are doxed, you're known entities, you're KYC'd, you've got real bank accounts, you're a real company. You're sitting there saying, I want to build a real business. I just don't want to do it on the SWIFT system. I don't want to be a part of this. I'll pay my taxes. I'll make sure everyone does their things. But the technology that we need is different than what you had in the 1990s. And so I have to be forward thinking. So I entirely sympathize with those concepts that you're dealing with right now.
Yeah. It's difficult enough to, build a startup. As everyone knows, over 90% fail. You have those just like intrinsic, risks and issues to deal with. Then you're adding on top of that, you could do everything by the books, right? And it's still, you could still skirt an unknown regulation. It's very difficult to navigate and to have any sort of like reassurance as you're building. So I think we will get clearer frameworks in the near term, whether it's this administration or the next one. It's impossible. This industry is here to stay. There's too much capital flowing in globally for there to not be clear guidelines about what you can and can't do, which isn't too much to ask, right? They could be draconian, but at least let us know what is acceptable and what is not. I think that's like the something we need to get rectified.
30% tax on all Bitcoins mined is that's their solution.
Yeah,
tax
right.
you and to the point where it's not profitable anymore.
Yeah.
So,
and it's clear. It's not even, without going too far down this hole, but a lot of it down the rabbit hole, but a lot of it is nonsensical. It doesn't even. There's clear ulterior motives and conflicts of interest around what this technology is very disruptive, so it brings a lot of that with it. So to answer your question, Sue, that's I'd say the main negative dark cloud overhanging the industry, and it makes it scary for newcomers to enter in. We're dealing with brands constantly; they all have a Web3 arm, but they don't know if they're there's too much risk for them versus the upside right now.
Their lawyers probably they've got an army of lawyers back at corporate asking lots of questions, and right.
Yeah, and no one has the answers because there aren't clear answers. Despite if anyone says they know, though, that there aren't. So once that gets cleared up, there'll be a very clear path forward. You're going to see more and more newcomers into the space. More novel technology being built and more capital flowing in. And I think on the bright spot where the future is headed is a very, it's very strong overall. I think we've crossed that chasm where this is no more like the complete Wild West, like a fringe, sector. And it's now widely adopted, I think, thanks to this last bull run. And I think this next wave, which I mentioned to before, will be marked by consumer-friendly products, mobile apps, user-friendly games, things that will really onboard non-native crypto users without them even realizing that they're interacting with the blockchain. And that's where the chain you're built on doesn't really matter. Like Jay said, you care about the site you're using to use Web 2 references. You care if Instagram is good or Facebook. You don't care what it's built on. And that's kind of where we need to get to as an industry. And I think that's where we're headed. There's amazing stuff being built behind the scenes on the positive side.
Well, and we want to do everything on our mobile, right? We carry this with us all the time. So we want that permanent record of this awesome, hard to get a ticket for a concert that we went to, this really great collectible that we got in an instant at that concert. That it's just so many new things that consumers are beginning, especially younger consumers, are beginning to expect.
Yeah, and I want to just take a quick second and talk about the developments of these, because as someone who builds in the space, and we talk, our audience is builders, entrepreneurs, and people that want to start working in the space. It's so much harder than Web 2. And I think that's the thing that most people don't understand is you cannot, that's great that you can just, issue a coin. But the concepts behind the implications of that are forever. And so, in the Web 2 world, you can build a car, you can send it out on the track, take a couple of laps, bring it back in, make some changes, and you just keep doing it over and over and over again until you get a product. So you launch a website, you make some changes, you change your product around, and it's very forgiving. You can update it. Working in Web3 technologies, you're launching a satellite, and you're sending this thing off into space, and it's not coming back. If you do something wrong or something critically wrong, you're going to have something that's dead floating around in space, and you're going to have to replace it, which then causes more problems. What's it been? Is there kind of decision, paralysis that you guys suffer every now and then when you're trying to figure out what chain are we going to go onto? How are we going to mint these NFTs? How do you guys walk through the merger of Web 2 and Web 3 technologies?
Yeah, it's really a great question, and the points you hit on are absolutely spot on. They say some of the features of Web 3 are actually the bugs. So one is immutability, right? But then with that comes this permanent stamp, historical stamp on chain. So there's a couple of things that are much more difficult about building in Web 3 than Web 2. I mentioned the speed at which the space moves. It's really 24/7. You can't really take time off, or else you will get lapped. But there's breakneck innovation. And to your point, Jay, there's a lot more implications in each decision that is made within a company when you're launching products. For us, there's a couple of different approaches you could take as a builder. There's one school of thought that is ship as fast as you can, build and ship as fast as you can, get feedback from the market, and then iterate when you can. It's not as easy with something like a token, but in terms of products, if you put out an MVP, you could then get market feedback and build from there. That's one school of thought, get to market as quick as possible. We approached Rove from a different school of thought, which is finding that balance between building fast, right, but also being very thoughtful before launching anything into the market. And Rove and the Rove World app now is not what it was when it started. It's evolved a lot. We were able to survey the landscape and build for what was coming instead of what currently existed. And I think you have to have a level of acceptance that at any given moment there could be critical errors or bugs or mistakes in what you put out there. It's a nature of the beast. If you are not built for that, individually or as a team, you're going to have a very difficult time navigating it. So it's just something you have to live with. And then you do the best within those confines. So what I would say to any builder is take a thoughtful approach, go to market when you feel it's right. And then from there, once you're live, then iterate fast, ship fast. And for stuff that is more, there's certain things that are of critical importance. And then there's certain things that can be iterated on. A product, a mobile app, we can iterate on it. If this button isn't working, or we don't like the placement, or this feature isn't great, we can build upon that. But if we launch a token, you can't necessarily redo that. Or if you do, with a burn or an airdrop, it has a lot of consequences, as Jay's point. So that's something that you want to let grow more organically. Make sure you get it right, get multiple viewpoints on it, and various security audits. Really do your diligence on the things that when you ship have much more permanent consequences than the stuff that you can adapt.
Awesome. Sue?
I think when you think about the brands that you work with and other brands, what are the couple of projects that you're most excited about at Rove World, and who else do you admire what they're doing?
Yeah, another great question. Our biggest brand activation thus far, and I'm going to preface this by saying the app has been live a little over 3 months now, so we're still kind of new to market. Our biggest activation was at the Tommy Hilfiger fashion show. Tommy Hilfiger is a very important piece of our project and our company, big believer in Rove. And at the Tommy Hilfiger Fashion Show, this was our first in real life sort of activation, bridging the physical and digital. We allowed all 2,000 attendees had the opportunity to mint a free Rove NFT. It was Tommy's first ever NFT on their phone in under a minute. No crypto involved. For a lot of people, they've never owned an NFT. And, because of a lot of the complexities we spoke about before, but this gave them an opportunity. And it was more of like a sort of test case where we were like taking a lot of market feedback and building that from there. That was a really cool one. What I'm most excited about right now, our main focus with Rove is on a lot of events and ticketing, specifically in the Web3 industry. And we're getting a lot of traction with crypto native audience. Where we're going with V2, which we'll be releasing in a few months, is we're building this concept of in-app stores or storefronts where brands can have different fully designed spaces within Rove where they are selling digital assets direct to their consumers, whether that's tickets to events, whether that's membership passes. They can make use of our loyalty rewards program on chain and really give this direct brand to fan relationship can really form. And that's where we have a lot of brands in fashion, film, music, and sports. Those are our key verticals that we will be piloting with the launch of V2 in addition to the NFT communities. So really bridging both. And super excited for that to play out. And we're getting a lot of interest in our next rollout.
Excellent.
And to answer your last thing, who else do I admire in the space? I think that a lot of like entertainment NFTs and brand activations have unfortunately gone wrong or missed so far. I think it was the first evolution. We saw a lot of celebrities come out and launch an NFT that had no ongoing utility, quickly went to zero. Their fans are left holding a worthless asset, and they're actually more disgruntled than they are. So it backfired. So there aren't that many examples of activations that have gone incredibly right. I think some new things around physically minting NFTs at music festivals and in real life events is very interesting and something we're focused on. And I think one brand that we kind of know a little bit about, or one project, is called Recur, which launched some major IP early. I think Scarface and Nickelodeon and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
They suffered the same fate I just described, where there was no utility and these went to zero. But what I admire most is they pivoted and built a full suite of tools to provide ongoing value. So they're one that's trying to advance this part of the industry, and they're doing a good job.
How do you see the physical and the digital coming together with brands like Tiffany had, jewelry with an NFT?
Yeah, I think this concept of like bridging the physical and digital or merging them. Once again, it's another buzzword theme we hear all the time, but I think there's something truly there. I think that's one of the unique value propositions of Web3 is digital ownership, the way we have physical ownership. And we never had that before fully. So the first iteration of this were just these JPEG collectibles that people loved. That's losing flavor, and we're demanding more and more sort of utility. I think there's a lot there, Sue, that will be unfolding in the next bull market where how can we get a digital footprint of a physical item that then gives us something, whether that's rewards or perks or access or being part of a close-knit community. How do we really rival what you get by physical ownership digitally? So it's a huge theme, and without going too deep into it, I think we're going to see some of the biggest innovations in the upcoming months and years around that.
Yeah, Jason, one of the things I really like that you're talking about is utility. And, to me, the bull run of NFTs started with it exists. Like, because it exists and because we're going to say it's digitally scarce, like there's intrinsic value. And I think that we've quickly moved past that for, probably 99.8% of all NFTs that have ever been created. So there's a small minority of these that, did find enough, communities or somehow just people like them because they like them. But the next phase of this is moving to like, I own this because it's a key. It unlocks something or it reminds me of something that I did. And that's really where again, as you said earlier, the space shifts so quickly, and whatever you knew yesterday, you better be ready to relearn again today, because it's most likely changing. That comes with education. It's one of the biggest challenges that yWhales faces every day is that we have to educate business leaders on, and that's exactly what this podcast is, on where the space came from, where it is today, and where it's going. How do you kind of tackle that education standpoint, especially with some of these brands that have had failed activations, that were sold a bill of goods of like, oh, just mint a thing with your logo on it and it'll be fine. Everyone's going to love it. Like, how do you overcome those?
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the biggest obstacles in addition to what we spoke to earlier. So when you're dealing with brands or onboarding new people, social validation matters a lot. So the fact that others are already doing it is crucial. And when no one else is, it's even more difficult to get that first mover buy-in. So we're at a good place with the space as a whole, where in the early days of this industry, no one wanted to touch it. No corporations wanted to touch it. And that was very difficult, because the first part about education, before you could onboard anyone, is, why is this industry important to me? Why do I need to get involved in it? And why is this the future? If you can sell them about how this will directly benefit their users or their product or their bottom line, then you have them hooked. Then it's about, okay, now how do I go about this in the proper way? So I think holistically, we're at a good place where people believe there's enough buy-in now that there is something here. So we've crossed that first hurdle. The second hurdle, which you mentioned, Jay, is let's call it a brand or an organization or a notable figure who has tried something in the space. It's gone horribly wrong. How do they dust that off and trust it again to continue? And I think the answer comes to a lot of what we and others are trying to do, which is taking all the difficult decisions out of the equation. We can make a super simplified product that works extremely well, that removes the points that they probably got burned by earlier, which was people didn't know how to buy their asset. It potentially was like a scam or unsafe. And then there was no utility in it. Those were probably one of the three things that went wrong. Or it didn't sell out because they used a platform that had no community. We've specifically are setting out to solve those. And we think the answer is create a super user-friendly product with a community around it that removes those pain points, those points of friction that probably burned them in the past. Then say, it didn't work before, but here's where the technology has evolved to. This is what it enables for you and your community or your fans, and give this a second try, or else you will miss the boat. And then you show them the metrics. Wallets are growing, users are growing, more brands are coming in. This is not an industry on the decline. It's going up and to the right. So I think but it is a difficult process, and it's the hardest. And it's especially the hardest when something like FTX happens, which puts a severe stain on the industry, not because the tech is flawed, but because of bad actors and the regulatory aftermath. That's what hurts the most, because it's not something we have direct control over as an industry.
100%.
Yeah.
Jason, amazing conversation so far. And Sue, thank you so much for co-hosting on this one. It's great to have someone that's an experienced developer, and you've worked on a lot of projects. Rove is your current one, but you've done quite a bit in the past. And I think that's really important, because in this space, the first thing you do, like almost any asset class, it can be a success, but most likely it isn't. And so really understanding how to work in the space, how to work with clients, and kind of having your 10,000 hours is critically important. And you have that, and it showcases with Rove today. As you kind of look into the future, and as you said, you always kind of are skating to where the puck's going, not worrying about where it is today. What's your thoughts on kind of the best way for people to look at the space and look at entering or kind of revising their current Web 2 products into a Web 3? Just, any thoughts you have related to that?
Yeah, I think we've, as I mentioned before, we've passed that chasm where this is an accepted industry, whether or not the current regulatory regime believes that, this is here to stay. that was the first hurdle we overcame. And from there, this allows sort of breakneck innovation. Just from being on the ground, I'm seeing the best minds in the world during bull markets, like the most capital, all flow here, which is very directionally important. So I think we have an extremely bright future ahead holistically. I think now it's about how do we expand the industry and onboard the masses. And I think, as I said before, that revolves around consumer-friendly products that remove the complexities that the space faces right now. I think that also entails a multi-chain future, which is another theme we hit on, where all of these blockchains are interoperable. You don't have to take 2 days to bridge assets from one to the other. And so what does the world look like in the multi-chain future? Well, you're using chains for specific use cases. Oh, this chain is better for security. This is better for speed. This is better for, X, Y, and Z. But you're able to migrate pretty seamlessly from one to the other. And this is where you're built on becomes less and less relevant. There's less of these tribalistic communities. And it's more about what is the product you're building. And I think this gets into an important concept, which is it used to be one of the early theses in this industry, which I think is important, was called the FAT protocol thesis, which was that all of the value would ultimately accrue down to the protocol. So the actual blockchain, whether that's Ethereum or Avalanche or Bitcoin, right? It wouldn't matter as much about the applications or the dApps or the products. It was the value would flow there. Now we've sort of, the new train of thought in the space is that the space is shifting towards less of a FAT protocol thesis and more value being placed on the actual application layer. So it's not as much about this value accruing to the blockchain, the layer 1 or layer 2. It's this value accruing to apps that can actually onboard a massive amount of users and accrue value in and of itself. And that can combine tokens with just traditional revenue, right? We can create real businesses. It doesn't all have to be based off of tokens, right? And I think that's something we're really focused on with Rove. I think that's where the space is headed. I think what we need is that one breakout application, whether it's a game, whether it's a social app, that really is a step up from what you see in Web 2. Because the reality is, it's a sad reality, but the average consumer who isn't in this space doesn't care about a lot of the ideological things we're talking about self-ownership of assets. They don't care unless they have to. So when we can actually create products that are actually better to use than what currently exists, that's when we will have that mass influx of users. There's a lot that I think is wrong with the space that needs to improve, but by and large, I think we're headed towards a time of more regulatory clarity, much more building happening globally, and literally a future internet that is based off of these principles. And we're in the earliest innings. Last thing I'll say is the reason we have these crazy swings with a bull market where stuff goes up 30x and then a bear market where it goes down 99% is a function of the space being so early and inefficient still. It's not a mature market. And I'm also excited for the time where that becomes more mature and you don't have these 3-year winters and then these 18-month euphoric swings. It's a lot to deal with emotionally in the space. It'll be nice when that calms down a little bit.
I completely agree. And that's a really good way to kind of look at the space. And so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants to know more about Rove, you, or kind of get involved with your project, what's the best way to find you guys?
Yeah. So glad you asked. I know Sue showed off the app earlier. So just to download the app, it's called the Rove World app, 2 words. It's available for iOS and Android just in the App Store. So if you want to play around with it, if you invite 3 friends, you get a free NFT as part of the onboarding process. So we got downloads in over 200 countries and 6 continents. A lot of people inviting their friends. So that's, I'd say, the best way to use the product. You could check us out at roveworld.xyz is our website. Our Twitter handle, which is where we're most engaged, is at Rove World app on Twitter. My personal one is Jason M, as in Michael Desimone, at Twitter. You can find me there. And then, beyond that, we have a Discord. We're very active with our community. There we go, Jay. And We just onboarded another one, so we're we're on the way.
You're forcing me into either Apple or Google sign in.
Yes,
that's the only thing I'll throw at you right now.
Yes,
but that's fabulous. And then just as a quick teaser, talk of a coin.
Yeah, so rather than a token, Rove, we have what are called Rove credits. These are our in-app loyalty reward system. They're off-chain for now. This is a credit system. Right now, your early NFTs can be locked to earn these. These can be redeemed to buy tickets, get exclusive access to everything we're doing. And this is across the whole ecosystem. So if there's a Tommy Hilfiger activation where you earn Rove credits, you could apply that, to film, music, sports, or our own sort of internal products. And this will ramp up more with V2, where we have stores all circled around the Rove credits. So that's something that we're able to have our on-chain assets and our off-chain as well, and blend the best of both worlds. So that's something we're really excited about. It's built off of a tokenomic model, but it is a loyalty reward program. So we're able to get a little creative there. So yeah, that's the Rove credits, and a lot of what I described with V2 and going multi-chain. Expect all that late summer, and we will be announcing some big partnerships leading up to that. So a lot we're kind of cooking up behind the scenes right now.
That's amazing. Congratulations, and super excited to kind of continue to watch the project.
You're just doing a masterful job of integrating Web 2 and Web 3 and having them work together.
We're trying,
Fabulous.
But thank you for that.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for the time today. Sue, amazing job co-hosting as always. Thank you,
Jay.
Thank you. And Jason, again, really excited to kind of watch the progress go. 3 months, you're already, kind of ready to go into V2. That's showcases the rapid innovation, moving from Web 2 to Web 3 and really a lot of utility behind the scenes. So really excited about it. yWhales, this is another one in the wraps. We'll see you soon.